Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. Today, we're going to talk about Cardano and its native token ADA. If you guys like the content, please subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and also check out the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. Let's go ahead and jump in. So we've been talking about ADA since, over a year now, since it was less than around 2 cents or so. And we had a pretty amazing run earlier this year. It was truly remarkable. In fact, it was one of the ones that was performing the best for quite a while. And in fact, from bottom to peak of 2020, before we came back down, it went up 900%. We then later extended that up to all the way over 1,000%. Okay? But remember, everyone is very familiar with percentages here. 900% is already a 10x, right? 900% move is 10x. And obviously that makes sense, because if a 100% move is 2x, then a 900% move is 10x. So far from the minimum price of ADA this year to the maximum, it is up over 1,000%, which is 11x. And I gotta tell you guys, this is about, in terms of being up that much, this is probably the most bearish I've seen people be about the altcoin market after being up 11x from the bottom. But with that said, the reasonings are there, of course, right? I mean, the altcoin market as a whole has bled profusely against Bitcoin recently, and it's just another reminder why, in my opinion, it makes sense to hold Bitcoin in your portfolio and Ethereum. But also, as we've said many times, what is my primary hedge against Ethereum? It's Cardano. And we've been saying this for over a year. And I think this project has a long way to go. Okay, we were at 2 cents at some point in 2020. We were in fact less than 2 cents back in March. Now we're looking at around 15, 16 cents. I think that generally speaking, over the next several years, we should trend higher. I do think we will ultimately break our prior all-time high of around $1.30 or so, $1.38, somewhere in that ballpark. But again, this is not financial advice. There's no free lunch. If you want to take the risk, you realize what's involved. And you also recognize, too, if you didn't up until this point, then you should now, as we've said, when Bitcoin volatility gets high, then typically speaking, altcoins will not perform that well. Now, we're losing valuation against Bitcoin, but you could argue we're losing it in the best way possible, right? We're losing valuation against Bitcoin. However, it's not at the expense of ADA's USD valuation. It's just at the expense of Bitcoin going up. Therefore, if you do own a majority of your portfolio in Bitcoin, which is what I do, then you're still doing quite well. Doesn't mean we don't want our other coins to do well, because we hold them in anticipation of them outperforming Bitcoin. By taking on that extra risk, we want to see that higher return. Now, where are we now? Well, Bitcoin remains to be the leader, right? It is the king, and it probably will be for the foreseeable future. The only way that ADA is likely going to have a breakout is whenever Bitcoin calms down. We know this. Just looking at historical data, if Bitcoin volatility is high to the upside or the downside, it's going to give ADA pause. And if you look at the ADA Bitcoin valuation, we are coming back down to that key reaccumulation level that we saw and identified over a year ago. If you guys have been with the channel for a while, let me know in the comments if you guys have been here a while. You guys remember this accumulation phase for ADA that we said is essentially for ADA an accumulation phase of a lifetime. Well, in fact, you can see we have come back down to those levels. And obviously converting Bitcoin to ADA at this point, in the short term, as long as Bitcoin volatility remains high, which it seems like it will be until we start printing weekly candles going sideways, you're more than likely, there's a high probability if you were to convert Bitcoin to ADA in the short term that you would see it lose value. Momentum is a really strong indicator. A lot of traditional technical analysis, I would say, is completely useless. Doesn't mean we can't speculate on it sometimes. Momentum is something that really does carry a lot of weight, and it's hard to shift momentum, right? It's really hard to do so. In this example from 2019, we came all the way down, and ADA bled against Bitcoin from the peak all the way down to this wick at the bottom, 80% over 119 days, as measured from March of 2019 to August of 2019. So about 5 months or so. We then trended sideways for about 294 days. We made a major move back up, 177% over 56 days. But when momentum gets going to the downside, again, it can be hard to turn it back around. What I think we would want to see is we would want to see Bitcoin volatility cool off and ADA and let people speculate on the altcoin market again. I mean, with institutional investors, of course, and people just FOMOing into Bitcoin, it's really hard to know where the top's going to be. But in terms of DCAing into coins like ADA, I think this is remains to be a decent time to add ADA to your portfolio. And again, if Bitcoin were to crash down to the 20-week moving average, which we know that it'll do at some point, if it were to do that, then we would expect ADA to bleed against USD and against Bitcoin in the short term. But again, I do contend that the long-term prospects here are generally good. So be prepared for downside volatility as well as upside volatility. And in terms of USD, ADA remains to be looking quite good. Now against Ether, it is a pretty interesting pattern as we talked about before. It seems to have these well-defined peaks against Ether. And you can kind of see in some sense they're lengthening between peaks, right? Something like this, and maybe we're just currently in the next one, right? And I don't know how far down it's going to go, or if we're going to go down even further, maybe we just start going back up here. But the next time we find ourselves up here, where the ADA Ether valuation is closing in, at around, it's currently at 25,000. If it were to be back around above 50,000 up to 60,000, we would just want to recognize that that has been our local top in the past. Now, I say that Cardano is my primary hedge against Ethereum. I do hold more Ether than Cardano because I think Cardano has a mountain to climb. It doesn't mean it can't climb it. And even if Ether is successful, it does not mean that Cardano can't try to take some of that market share. So I will continue to accumulate ADA. The risk level on ADA remains fairly low because we've been going sideways for quite a while now. We've essentially been trying to establish what the new normal is. For a long time, we were just trying to get our heads above 10 cents. And we spent the better part of 2019 below it. We came slightly above it in 2019 and then all the way back down to less than 2 cents. We've broken through it, came back down, and now we're above it again. So hopefully we are establishing what our new normal is so that eventually we can propel ourselves back to some of these higher valuations. If you guys remember, I distinctly remember this ADA run back in 2017. Let me know if you guys were there. But essentially what happened was ADA went from like 2 cents to 13 cents really quickly. And then it went from 13 cents to 39 cents in like a week or something. And then 39 up to the 60 and 70 cent range. And then ultimately a final spike up to over $1.30 or so. So don't underestimate the amount of time we can spend going sideways. But then when the time comes, things can get out of hand pretty quickly. So we just want to keep things in mind. I would say I'm fairly bullish on ADA for the market cycle, and I'm excited to see where it's going to take us. We like to just generally look at the ADA valuation against Ether. It's still pretty much in the undervaluation territory. Now, you could argue that the ADA valuation against Ether has trended down for the last 3 years or so, and it has, right? Let's be practical here. It has. We can't look at this and say it hasn't been trending down. But again, the peaks are the same. And also, we recognize that ADA has never experienced a full Bitcoin bull market. So it's essentially only been around in a bear market. And in a bear market, altcoins are more prone to negative volatility, and especially over Ether because their market caps are a lot lower. We're going to see a lot more negative volatility. Maybe as we get into a bull market cycle, and it seems like certainly Bitcoin is flirting with the idea of a multi-year bull market, then perhaps we'll see some more of that upside volatility for ADA. And as I showed in another video, if you look at the ROI of ADA as measured from March, the March crash, it is actually one of the top performers in the top like 20 to 25 coins. Link is up there around the same level, VeChain, Stellar Lumens. These are all coins that have seen pretty significant returns as measured from the bottom in March. So again, ADA is still doing quite well. I think we're quite healthy. I think ADA is doing exactly what it should be doing when Bitcoin volatility is going up. It's more or less going sideways. There will come a day when it will switch back. As everyone says, altcoins are dead until they're not, and then you get the new class of investors, the new wave of investors, I should say, that come into the market, especially when altcoins start soaring. They look at Bitcoin and say, "Oh, Bitcoin's not doing anything." They miss the major Bitcoin run, and then they go into altcoins after they've already pumped a lot. They get burned, and then they just get pretty much disenfranchised with cryptocurrency as a whole. So I would say, as long as you have a multi-year outlook on this and you're in it for the long haul, which I think a lot of people are, then I think steady accumulation of ADA, there's a good probability that it will work out very well in the not so distant future. But let's always be pragmatic and recognize that Bitcoin controls the market. Any Bitcoin volatility to the downside will result in an ADA bleed against Bitcoin most likely, and any continued volatility of Bitcoin to the upside will also likely result in ADA bleeding against Bitcoin. We got to wait for the Goldilocks zone when Bitcoin starts moving bullish or starts moving sideways at a fairly bullish level above the 20-week moving average. So the cards are there, the catalyst is there. We just need to see Bitcoin cool off for a while. And once that happens, I think there's a good chance we're going to start moving. But of course, always be on the lookout for a Bitcoin crash. Remember, 2017, Bitcoin went to 20K, then came back down to 10K, then had a dead cat balance to 17K, and all throughout that time, ADA was just going crazy and going up way more than 10x. I mean, from 2 cents to over $1.30. So we're talking about like 60, 70x in about a month. So let's just buckle up, and I would say let's prepare for the next several years. We'll see where it takes us. Thank you guys for tuning in. Subscribe to the channel. Give the video a thumbs up. Remember to check out the Telegram channel in the description below, and we also have the premium list if you want access to the exclusive content holiday sale. You can find that in the description below as well. Thank you guys for tuning in. I will see you next time. Bye.